It's Friday, August 4th, and this is now on HNN. Two juries are deciding the fates of two people in separate high-profile murder cases.
Honolulu police released details of their investigation into a fatal multi-car crash that shut down parts of the H1 freeway yesterday.
This was never supposed to happen in America.
Former President Donald Trump is in full campaign mode 1 day after pleading not guilty to charges related to interference in the 2020 election. I'm Willie James Inman in Washington with details on the case and what comes next.
It is super important that parents have a safe place for the kids to go to while they go to work.
These stories, plus if you're on the lookout for an after-school program for your keiki, Casey Lund tells us about some options coming up on This Is Now. Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for watching. This is Now. We begin with breaking news out of Maui. The FAA has shut down landing operations at Kahului Airport indefinitely because of a nearby brush fire and smoke in the area. Now, this is video just sent into our newsroom, and you can see that thick smoke off in the distance. The State Transportation Department says if planes need to be diverted, they will be sent to either Kona or Honolulu airports. We'll be tracking this story and we'll bring you any updates as we get them.
Now, and to our other top stories, we want to get to a tragic update from a story that actually happened yesterday afternoon. The crash that snarled the afternoon commute for thousands of drivers ended the lives of two people. Now, police have wrapped up their preliminary investigation and have shared early details of what happened. Authorities say 4 people total were involved. 2 elderly victims, a man and a woman in their 80s, were killed. Another 22-year-old man was seriously injured, and a 34-year-old declined medical care at the scene. The deadly crash on the busy freeway happened around 3:15 Thursday afternoon near Aia's Kaonohi overpass. According to police, the 34-year-old driver rear-ended the elderly victims. That impact sent their car into another vehicle being driven by the 22-year-old. His car then crashed into a fourth vehicle. The elderly victims were wearing their seatbelts when the crash happened. Police say it doesn't appear that speed, drugs, or alcohol were factors in the crash. Now, the freeway was closed for several hours into the evening as traffic backed up into the Kunia and Ewa area. This tragic incident marks Oahu's 29th and 30th traffic fatality so far this year. That's compared to 26 the same time last year.
Loved ones of a bicyclist hit and killed in Kahului last week say the tragedy could have been prevented. 59-year-old Volker Weiss was riding with friends last Thursday on Pulehu Road when witnesses say a pickup truck crossed a solid double yellow line, overtook 5 cars, and crashed into him. Maui police arrested 61-year-old Jeffrey Short for negligent homicide in the first degree. He was later released pending investigation.
I held his hand and I started talking to him, and I told him we were there. I told him help was coming, and I told him we loved him, and I did that over and over until they made me stop.
An accident is maybe you forget, I don't know, you forget something on your grocery list or something like that. Like, these aren't accidents, these are entirely preventable tragedies that just rip apart families.
A ride of silence honoring Weiss will be held on Sunday. Details are on hawaiinewsnow.com.
Prosecutors on Hawaii Island have charged 58-year-old Robert Kinoshita for allegedly possessing and distributing methamphetamine. Authorities accuse him of having over 2 pounds of meth. Police caught up to him in the parking lot of the Loa State Park in Hilo. They executed a search warrant on his car and found the drugs along with more than $6,600 in cash. He's set to appear in court this afternoon. He remains in custody with bail set at $300,000.
Multiple fires broke out across Oahu yesterday, including 2 brush fires, keeping crews busy for the early morning and even into the overnight hours. First, an update on the brush fires. At last check, the Waikele brush fire has been fully contained. We broke that story in yesterday's show as we saw flames coming close to Patsy Mink Park. Here's what residents in the area had to say.
I was in my house reading, I heard screaming. I had already seen the smoke when I was on my way home, but it was further that way. Then I heard the screaming and my neighbor came, knocked on the door. I opened up the garage, got the fire extinguisher, saw the fire. We got some hoses, came over here, started doing our best to stop it from really getting the neighborhood.
Meanwhile, HFD said firefighters are still working to put out a brush fire on the North Shore along Kamehameha Highway. Officials say it's only 50% contained. All roads have since been reopened.
And on Maui, a large catamaran caught fire and sank at Ma'alaya Boat Harbor. It happened just before 4 a.m. yesterday. No one was on board at the time. Damages estimated at $8,000. Investigators are still looking into the cause. Well, 2 juries are deciding the fate of 2 people in separate high-profile murder cases. Happening today, the same jury that convicted Haley Dandaran of murder, kidnapping, burglary, and 2 less serious crimes will continue to consider her punishment. The 26-year-old was convicted in the grisly 2017 North Shore murder of Thelma Boynville. If they can't agree, she will automatically be sentenced to life with a chance for parole that is usually possible after 25 years. Prosecutors fought for an extended sentence in that case. Meanwhile, it is now up to a jury to decide if Eric Thompson is guilty of murdering his wife's alleged lover. Closing arguments wrapped up yesterday. The prosecution says physical and DNA evidence as well as surveillance footage linked Thompson to the location where John Tokuhara was found dead. They say he was motivated to kill because of the affair with his wife, but the defense maintains police only focus their investigation around Thompson without exploring other possible suspects. They say there's no definitive DNA connection, and they argue he wasn't even in the area at the time of the crime. When the juries reach their decision, we'll be sure to bring you the latest details on your HNN digital platforms.
Former President Donald Trump is doing double duty, preparing to defend himself in court and trying to win the Republican presidential primary at the same time. Willie James Inman has more.
Former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail just 1 day after pleading not guilty during the arraignment on charges he tried to overturn the 2020 election.
When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
Trump says the charges against him are meant to distract him from campaigning. He posted on social media Friday, resources that would have gone into ads and rallies will now have to be spent fighting these radical left thugs in numerous courts throughout the country. The cases have done little to slow down Trump's momentum with Republican voters. He continues to gain ground against his GOP primary rivals.
Well, I think it's politically motivated, absolutely.
Campaigning in Iowa, Governor Ron DeSantis, Trump's closest opponent, attacked the government and not the former president.
The question is, what are we going to do about it? We need to end the weaponization. We're going to hold DOJ, FBI, IRS, all these agencies accountable.
76% of likely Republican voters in a recent CBS News poll say the indictments are politically motivated. Trump posted this week, "I need one more indictment to ensure my election." Willie James Inman, CBS News, Washington.
2 U.S. sailors are under arrest accused of providing sensitive national security information to China. NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports.
Tonight, the Justice Department says the 2 Navy sailors have each been arrested for selling military secrets to China.
Sensitive military information ended up in the hands of the People's Republic of China.
The first defendant, 22-year-old Jin Chao Wei, faces espionage charges.
Wei sent national defense information to China, including documents, photos, videos, and technical manuals. In exchange, his intelligence officer paid Wei thousands of dollars.
Authorities say Wei, a machinist's mate on the USS Essex in San Diego, sent the Chinese intelligence officer photos of military hardware and vehicles and divulged information about warfare exercises. The second person charged in a separate case, 26-year-old Petty Officer Wenhang Zhao from a naval base in Ventura County, California. Federal authorities allege Zhao received approximately $15,000 from a Chinese intelligence officer in exchange for sharing operational plans, Navy movements, and blueprints for a radar system at a U.S. military base in Okinawa, Japan.
In short, Mr. Zhao chose a path of corruption.
The indictments come amid heightened fears about China-based cyber espionage, with Microsoft reporting that Chinese-backed hackers broke into the email accounts of State and Commerce Department employees, including the Secretary of Commerce. Both men held security clearances. Zhao just appeared in federal court and pleaded not guilty.
A former Columbus, Ohio police officer is charged with murdering an unarmed black man last year. Court documents show a grand jury indicted Ricky Anderson today for the killing of Donovan Lewis. Both sides say the 30-year veteran shot and killed Lewis in his bed in August 2022 while officers were serving a warrant. But they disagree about whether such force was warranted. Video from the department suggests Anderson might have thought Lewis was holding a weapon, although it turned out to be a vape pen. Attorneys for Lewis's mother say they're glad for the indictment, but disappointed it took as long as it did. The defense says it plans to present evidence justifying the shooting.
Well, some hot and cold news in the latest jobs report this summer. The economy added fewer jobs than expected, but hiring still continues. CBS's Bradley Blackburn has the details.
San Francisco transplant Bobby Lawler says he saw a lot of job openings during his nearly 3-month search, but he was looking for the right fit.
The people I was working with, the team, the environment, the culture was all very important to me.
Lawler accepted an accounting manager position with Bullpen Capital, joining the ranks of a still robust labor market. The economy added 187,000 jobs in July, just shy of expectations, while revised numbers show hiring was weaker in June and May. The unemployment rate dipped to 3.5%, near a record low. Mark Hamrick is a senior economic analyst with Bankrate.
The job market is seeing some cooling, but it's anything but cold.
Average hourly wages also increased 4.4% over the past 12 months, which could raise eyebrows at the Federal Reserve.
While that is not seen as a tremendous or very significant contributor to inflation, it's well above the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target.
Despite those wage bumps, a CBS News poll conducted last week found the majority of working Americans say their pay is not keeping pace with rising prices.
Feelings are important, but they don't really indicate what's happening in the real economy. And think of it this way, I might feel bad, and yet I'm still taking a trip to Florida with my family.
And all these numbers could add up to dodging a recession this year.
I think a soft landing has become not just a possibility, but now it's become a real probability.
The Fed will weigh these numbers and several more economic reports before its next policy meeting in September. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Community members and state leaders met last night in Kaneohe to discuss what to do about invasive pests. The battle has lasted years, but many say it's now an all-hands-on-deck situation. The chair of the Waimanalo Neighborhood Board says he heard about little fire ants at an unnamed Waimanalo nursery for years, so he purchased some flowering plants himself last month. He discovered the ants and then reported it to state authorities, who confirmed it was little fire ants.
It was very disappointing. It was unfortunate to think that I was able to simply purchase plants without any oversight from a nursery here in our community, which I later learned knew that they had a problem with little fire ants. And so I was really deeply concerned about how many people have had this happen.
We're doing our best, and our staff is really good. They've done helicopter drops. We've done spraying.
The Department of Agriculture chair told Hawaii News Now more staffing and money is needed, but that the agency could do a better job at outreach to the public.
Take a look at this. A snake on board a boat bound for Hawaii. That's what agriculture officials captured recently. That's a nearly 2-foot-long juvenile boa constrictor that was found alive on board a cargo ship. Now, that ship came to Hawaii, docked at Pier 31, and the agriculture officials climbed on board and said they were able to locate it in a hole on the deck. That snake has now been taken to the plant quarantine branch where it remains. Snakes are illegal in Hawaii and they do pose a serious threat to our natural ecosystem. Anyone found with a snake could face up to a $200,000 fine and 3 years in prison. It is a Class C felony. Our back to school coverage continues with a look at some of the after school programs. Our Casey Lunn reports from Nu'uanu with options for families.
Well, it can be difficult finding a safe, reliable after-school program, but we're here to help. We're at the YMCA at Nu'uanu, and they have the A+ program through the Department of Education, serving more than 4,600 students on Oahu at 60 DOE schools. We talked to Lisa Ontai. She's the Vice President of Marketing and Mission Advancement about how popular this program is, and she had some good news for a lot of the families that are on the wait list.
YMCA of Honolulu is one of the largest provider of the A+ after-school programs for our public schools, so over 60 sites, thousands and thousands of kids, and it is super important that parents have a safe place for the kids to go to while they go to work, right? But it's not just a safe place, it's a place where they can thrive, homework, get outside and play, learn their core values, and in some sites in underserved areas, they actually get a free meal, hot meal before they go home. 400 families over the last 2 weeks got very good news that they got off the wait list. Another 200 families are going to get good information or great news in a couple of days, but we still have many, many other families that are on the wait list, so we really need folks to come in and either give us your referrals or please come into work. We just raised our rates. We have great benefits.
So many families rely on A+, but there are a number of other after-school programs you may not have heard of. We also took a trip up to Kailua Town, where we met Asia Marie D'Antonio. She runs Kids Art Hawaii, a unique after-school program that focuses on creativity.
We're just here to make art and science fun and have some problem-solving skills and resiliency and really just make some great artwork and learn a lot about some cool science.
And we have one more for you, and that's After School All-Stars Hawaii. That is a nonprofit that's a nationwide program, but here in Hawaii, they serve disadvantaged middle schools, Title I schools. It's open to anyone that's eligible at those schools. We have a full list on hawaiinewsnow.com. I talked to the CEO about some of the activities that they have for Keiki.
Our programs include academics. There's a compulsory or mandatory academic program, and that's for an hour every day. And then for 2 hours, we have enrichment and sports programs. So it can be anything from sewing to art to soccer to football to basketball. So it's basically, we had last year we offered 139 separate different classes in all of those programs. So kind of something for everybody.
There's no cap for those programs. They have a lot of availability both on Oahu and Hawaii Island. You can learn more. It's completely free at hawaiinewsnow.com. We have all those details at our website, but again, you have to sign up for those programs earlier rather than later to make sure your kid has a spot. Reporting in Nu'uanu, I'm Casey Lunn. For now, we'll send things back to you.
Thank you very much. Happy Aloha Friday. Coming up tomorrow morning on Sunrise Weekends, we will talk with the organizers of the Heart Walk from their event live at Kapi'olani Park. Meanwhile, Comic-Con is happening this weekend in our Honolulu. The organizers will be live here in Studio B. And then I'll give you my top 5 list of events to do, to have fun at this weekend. It's coming up tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. Annalisa Burgos and myself, Sunrise Weekends on Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Billy. And speaking of the weekend, here is what your Aloha Friday outlook over Honolulu looks like right now. This is looking towards Diamond Head, lots of fluffy clouds and blue sky, and lots of sunshine as well.
Yeah, a beautiful day outside, and the beautiful conditions will likely stick around for your weekend. But before we get to our local forecast, we want to tell you about some severe weather on the mainland. Right now, 62 million people across the United States are under potentially new round of heat records. Much of that is expected to hit southern states.
Yeah, and this as heavy rainfall and severe storms are striking several other states. Mike Valerio has the latest.
Roads turn to rivers, trees ripped from their roots blocking off roadways, relentless rainfall triggering flooding and devastation across parts of Missouri and Illinois. This as a new round of blistering temperatures is expected to sear the South, with more than 140 heat records having the potential to be shattered this weekend.
See the temperatures, they're really bad.
Extreme temperatures proving lethal across the U.S. Pima County, Arizona, reporting 64 heat-related deaths so far this year, and 14 people have been killed by the heat in Maricopa County this past week, where the city of Phoenix is forecast to see sizzling temperatures over 110 for the next 7 days.
This is unreal. Day, night, never seen anything like it.
In Florida,
I think we saw exactly what we feared, which is that this is the moving front of severe bleaching up through the Keys and now up into Miami-Dade.
scorching water temperatures are having devastating bleaching impacts on coral life, which are melting off their skeletons in the unusually warm ocean water. Florida wildlife officials posting on Facebook, due to the extreme heat, octocorals like sea fans and sea plumes are melting off their skeletons. Fish kills, conch kills, and sponge die-offs have been reported throughout the Keys as well. I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
A lot of dangerous conditions out there across the mainland. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our local forecast. Here's Guy Hagi.
How's it on this Aloha Friday? The weather's looking fantastic, at least through the weekend. And then as Hurricane Dora passes by to the south of us, we're expecting some windy conditions to develop. We're talking Sunday through Wednesday of next week. For today, Dora is less than 2,000 miles out. Will not have an impact on our weather until it passes to our south. And even then, it's going to pass so far down to the south, we won't see any rain from the storm. Now, this morning, we do have our fair share of windward and Mauka showers, much needed, much appreciated. But whatever rain comes in will also be moving out very quickly because we have nice steady trade winds. And those trade winds will provide us with very comfortable conditions today. Humidity levels won't be all that high, but we will get our surplus of sunshine along with those trade winds. So it's going to be a beautiful day today. High temperatures running to near 90 degrees. And as far as the surf, we still have some fun-sized surf on the south shore, even though the swell is waning. And heads up, as Dora passes by, we're going to see a pretty good-sized swell coming into south and southeast shores. Short-lived, but looks like it's going to be rising Monday and going to linger around through Tuesday, with Tuesday being the peak. So we have very calm conditions today, tomorrow, and to some extent Sunday. But starting on Sunday, as Dora gets closer, we're going to have very, very gusty winds, especially on Tuesday and Wednesday. But because Dora will be so far away, probably more than 300 miles away at its closest, we're not going to see any rain from the storm anytime soon.
Thank you, Guy. Let's see what the internet is talking about. So the FCC has issued a $300 million fine against an illegal robocall operator. That's a record-breaking fine and was initially proposed late last year. So the FCC says this investigation involved the largest robocalling operation they've ever seen, comprised of scammers who placed 5 billion auto warranty calls to more than 500 million phone numbers during a 3-month span in 2021. Now, those calls violated federal spoofing laws by using more than 1 million various caller ID numbers to mask where the actual calls were coming from and to trick their potential victims into picking up the phone. Now, the FCC concluded that the scheme started sometime around the year 2018. The ploy involved selling fake vehicle service contracts under the guise of pushing auto warranties.
Still
Good
so many
for
of
them.
those. Yeah, still so many calls
Shame
come
on
through.
you, robocall people.
And now to another story. Actor Leslie David Baker, who played Stanley Hudson on The Office, is giving back money to supporters who tried to get his Stanley spinoff up and running. Baker said on social media he is returning the more than $110,000 from the Kickstarter campaign that launched in 2020. Baker said the spinoff would have been called Uncle Stan. Supporters recently asked what happened to that money since the spinoff hasn't been made. Baker apologized in a statement and said the project faced delays due to the pandemic and ongoing industry strikes there.
Are you a Office fan?
I was just going to ask you that, Ashley. I actually never got into The Office, but I love, for some reason, the bloopers.
I was super into it. I don't think I'd watch that spinoff. So.
Oh boy.
Just my 2 cents.
Well, really quickly, we want to tell you it is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. So go out and get yourself a cookie. And a little fun fact about the history of the cookie here. It was actually a mistake.
I love that.
Ruth Graves Wakefield, back in 1937, was working in a hotel kitchen. Long story short, she thought she had baker's chocolate, and so she mixed it into the dough thinking it would melt evenly, but it did not. Instead, she used the semi-sweet chocolate, and thus the chocolate chip cookie was born. So big thanks to her.
That looks good.
Go out and enjoy a cookie, everyone. Happy Aloha Friday.
See ya.